Hey, Natalia.
Hi.
So super excited to have you here. I just want to intro Natalia quickly before we jump in. So she's a Clay Bootcamp student who graduated pretty recently. You have a lot of experience in a lot of things, including a lot of marketing. You're great at ops, and you joined Understory recently. And Alex Fine has said lots of amazing things about you, including, I think, calling you a Miro wizard, or I forget, something like just really good things about that. And so one of your superpowers is planning things out, as I understand. And so, like, it seems like planning things out might be a waste of time, but in reality, it saves a ton of time and helps with things like communication and avoiding chaos, especially as your organization grows. So, Natalia, we talked about you're going to share some real life examples of one workflow, like three different versions, and then we're going to build it together. It's one thing to see the end result, and I think that's going to be super useful for people, but it's also another thing to see like the process of doing that, so you can do it yourself. So I guess that's all I have in way of intro. Do you have anything you want to add, Natalia?
No, I think really like mapping process is something not only, I mean, when you see when I open the Miro board, for example, it's gonna look very colorful, very pretty, but I think the goal is not to build the most beautiful mapping, but it's something that actually helps the team, like to map all the processes, it helps the team, it helps also like it's for your own sanity. So the goal here is to actually try to teach how to create clarity in the processes. So yeah,
You're
I
saying the
think that's
goal
it.
in this session is to help people understand how to create clarity in their processes.
Yes, yeah.
Got you. And before we dive in, I kind of touched on it, but like, what are the different purposes of, or do you want to, of these flowcharts? Do you want to talk about that when you show them, or do you want to just talk about it?
You mean about the three? I think maybe we can start with because I wanted to actually introduce like the theme. I'm gonna talk about our B2B and maybe explain what our
Sounds
B2B
good.
is.
Let's do it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so for today, I wanna really share. I'm going to use actually an RB2B example. For those who don't know, RB2B is basically a tool that helps you identify whoever is visiting your website. So when someone visits your website, RB2B is going to tell you, okay, this is John from company X who just visited your pricing page.
Mm.
It's a pretty powerful tool for sales, marketing, GTM, but it's powerful if you know what you do after this. And this is what we are mapping. There are like a lot of possibilities. And what I want to share today are three different ways to map the process using RB2B, Clay, and your CRM.
RB2B, Clay, and what's the other one?
The CRM, it could be
Okay.
Salesforce or HubSpot or any other.
Sounds good. Perfect. Yeah. I'm excited.
So could you share my screen? Should I?
There should be a little button. Please. Yeah, go ahead. I don't, yeah,
Should
there's a little share button by the leave.
Let me just make sure I'm sharing the spot one. Okay, can you see my screen? Not yet. Or
Okay, it's starting. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
if I open, let me just try something. If I change this one, are you still seeing Miro or you see a
I'm
document?
still seeing Miro. Yeah, I'm seeing Miro.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm following the right things here. So, okay, we have, let me just get, okay, let's do this. So the way I wanted to start is really like we have a bunch of tools. We have very complex tech stacks. We have very complex like flows and processes. And as I mentioned in this example, I'm going to use B2B Clay and the CRM, which could be HubSpot or Salesforce or any other one. And the idea here is to show three different ways to map the process. But I think it's really like you can map like all the enrichment tools you are using, not necessarily Clay. You can add all the email sequences. You can add all the notifications. You can go from a very simple flow to a very
Mhm.
complex one. And I think the difference here is what is the purpose of the flow of the mapping that you are building? Do you want to show this to a client? Do you want to use to yourself just to like for troubleshooting, for like documentation, or you want to share with the leadership so they understand like a little bit of more detail of the process, but not in the weeds of like the properties being changed between tools, life cycle being updated. So there's actually I'm sharing 3 examples, but there's actually a bunch of ways that you can map your process, and it's going to depend on the goal. How do you want to share the tool you're using? So here we are using Miro.
Mhm.
Miro is my go-to platform, but I've used Lucidchart, I've used Figma, and even like drawing on a paper, you can do that as well. So it's up to you, really, what works better for you. The first one here, what I have is I want to share. This is sort of like an idea for you to share if you have an agency, let's say, and you want to share how our B2B works. You want to implement our B2B like in the client, for example, but the client doesn't really understand the importance of our B2B or how our B2B is going to work with the other tools. What is the value of the tool and the process? So this is one example, pretty simple one that you can build to share with a client or to share with the leadership. Let's say you have a meeting with the head of sales, and you want to show what you guys are doing with your B2B and how the leads are flowing to the sales team. So a few tips that I like to give whenever you are building a flow, a mapping. I like to make it very colorful so I understand, for example, decision points. I'm going to have all in the mapping, in the same mapping, I'm going to have the same colors so I can spot really easy. Like I know we have the format, but the colors as well. So,
Mm.
oh, this is a question. This is a decision point of the process.
Mhm. So traditionally, the decision point is just like a diamond shape, but
Yeah,
you make it like immediately obvious. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Then at the starting point, I also like to use different colors. And I mean, if you go, I think there are a bunch of templates for flow charting, Miro, in Lucidchart. So you can, this is also a starting point for you. And then for the actions, I like to use the same color as well. And here, if I want to add some information, this is not very common actually. I don't see this in like professional mappings or templates that you're going to use, but I like to use especially when I have a complex flow chart. So I like to add some notes for myself here. And I usually like use another color as well. So this one, it goes to the start. So we have an B2B visitor. Then we're gonna do some verification, enrichments, and like in Clay. One thing to note here, I'm not diving into the details of like what is happening inside Clay. I don't know. I'm not
Mhm.
adding it here. I just know that from our B2B, we are connecting it to Clay, and Clay is running a bunch of things that are necessary for this process. Then I have a decision point. Okay, this our B2B visitor, is it an ICP for the company? Is it a fit for us? If it's not an ICP, then we always use the N for no and a yes note here. So we have, if it's not an ICP, it's going to be updated as disqualified in the CRM. You have a bunch of options. It doesn't need to be like this, but for this example, pretty simple one, just disqualify it. If it's an ICP fit, what we are doing is we're going to add to the CRM if it's not there yet. And all this is happening through Clay, but I'm not diving into the weeds here. Then we're going to send a notification in the Slack channel. Sales has a few days to reach out and to update the property in the CRM, which could be done manually, could be done automatically via Clay or any other tool, but not here. It's just like illustrating the process. Then we have another decision point. If sales reach it out, if they didn't reach it out, so the status didn't change, we're gonna add the lead to an email sequence. And all this can be happening in automated ways. And we can also send a notification to the sales owner saying that, okay, this lead got added to this sequence, to this campaign, and whatever like other information that you want to add. If sales reach it out, then we have the start of the sales journey, opportunities being created, deal was won or lost. If it was won, we have the onboarding. So this is just like, as I mentioned, to presenting to the client. It's clean, it's short, and it tells the story. Okay, I have RB2B, I have Clay, I have the CRM, this is happening, and that's it. So this is the first example.
Really cool. Yeah, I can see an executive being like the right level of detail. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, cool. So then we go to the second example, which is more if you are operations or if you are marketing or sales. I mean, if you are working with this process, if you are setting up RB2B, if you are setting up everything in Clay, you can get more details in the flow. So this is another example, the second one. Here we have, it's the same flow that I mentioned. I just added more information. So, and another important thing here, I'm using the same, I'm not dividing the tools yet. So I have all in one vision. I know I have RB2B, Clay, and the CRM here again, but I don't know what is happening in RB2B, what is happening in Clay, and so on. So I have all in one view.
You're saying it's all on the yellow, like the background's all yellow. It's just not visually separated. Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna go through the process because I'm planning to build like this one once we start the building part of the course, but it's essentially the same. So we have someone entering, and then I added here the channels this person could be coming from. And then we have the lead verification in Clay, same as above. But then I added for myself here, because I'm the owner of the flow, what needs to be done in Clay. So I need to filter the properties that I have already. Do I need to enrich more to understand if this person is an ICP, or I want to, based on the information that I have, I want to like tag, okay, this is an ICP, then I will actually spend my credits in Clay to enrich, to validate the email. If it's not an ICP, then goes as disqualified. One cool thing that I like to do when things starts to get more like complicated, because you have a lot of possibilities and paths, I like to add either like symbols or numbers or colors, like different ways for me to understand that this is one point that I can reach this point here in the flow. Like I can set a lead as disqualified in this section of the flow, but in other section as well, as it's happening here. So let's say it's not an ICP, the lead was marked as disqualified in the CRM. I added the emoji here, the X. And then this can also happen here as well. So instead of me pushing an arrow to come here, or maybe duplicating the same action, and it's going to be a very long flow chart, I like to do this. So I know that, okay, then if it's not qualified, it's going to this, and I can link. In Miro, we can add a link. And if I click here, it's going to come to this part of the flow. So I know it was marked as disqualified. This is a cool tip.
Really cool.
And it's the same. I think let me just like show one difference. For example, here in the flow that I showed before, we know that the lead was going to Clay, but we didn't know what was happening. It was just like verification in Clay. But here I can tell like, if it's an ICP, then I'm going to validate the email in Clay. I'm going to enrich all the necessary information. So I open for more steps. And you can also do, if you want to have it all in one view, I can maybe, let's say I will, everything that is clay, I'm going to change to purple. So whatever is happening in clay, I'm going to change to purple. So I know this is the clay part of the process. This is one example as well of what can be done. But you can see here also, I think the last thing is like, I'm not inside the CRM. There's a bunch of things happening when a lead gets created or updated. So you can update lead status, you can update life cycle, you can convert the lead to a contact, but this is not here yet. I just know that, as I mentioned here, as I've added here, lead or contact, start sales journey. So I don't know if the sales team will be responsible to converting the lead to contact, if some property will be the trigger to convert it, if it's being associated to an account. I don't know this yet. I just know that I have more information about the flow, but not in the weeds. But it helps me understand, and maybe if I have a meeting with my that understands more about the process, he knows like the CRMs that we have, the CRM that we have, the tools that we have, so I can present this one to have more information for him to see the flow.
Nice.
So yeah, so this is the second example. The third one, then we're gonna get into this one is I didn't have time to build the same workflow for the RB2B example, but I think it covers what I want to share. In this example, if we were going to have the RB2B example, we like this one here, what I was going to do is I was going to build one section here for our B2B, one for Clay, one for the CRM. I can even add like one for Slack if we have Slack notification. So I'm opening more the process and what happened, very into the weeds of what happened inside each platform. So for example, here in this example, we have a lead flow mapping between HubSpot and Salesforce. So when we have one lead entering via a request to demo landing page, what happens here? So inside HubSpot, we have the lead validation process, a decision point, and then let's say the lead is not valid, we're gonna add it to a suppression list, or you're going to the lead from the database, you're gonna add as non-marketing contacts, depends on your process. But what I added here that it's new are the properties that are being updated. So in this step here of the process, we're gonna have set lifecycle stage as other and lead status as disqualified. All this happening inside HubSpot. And then I'm checking also, for example, the lead scoring here. If it's tier A, it has like 700 plus points. What happens then? And so on. At what, like in this example, at what point the lead or contact enters Salesforce and what happens in Salesforce as well. So let's say you have a flow between, one example that I'm dealing now is we have LinkedIn lead gen form. Then the person goes to a landing page that triggers the flow, which is like a routing tool.
Triggers the what?
It's called the flow, the platform. It's like, do you know Qualified, or let's see if we have a
Default. Yeah. I saw Joe Rue did a presentation with Attio on it or something.
yeah. It
Okay.
triggers it. I mean, in my example, it triggers it updates a bunch of properties, but it mainly triggers the lead routing. So we're gonna check like territories, which is the rep responsible for that lead, and then we're gonna automatically show the calendar if the person decides to book a meeting. And then we have Marketo and Salesforce, and then we have Slack and the email sequencer. So let's say I'm going to build this view here for this process that I just mentioned. Then I'm going, I mean, when you stop to think like, do I really need to because it's going to give me a bunch of work from mapping, like from LinkedIn lead gen form to the end point, which is like things being updated in Salesforce, being sent in Slack. It's a huge flow. But I actually have a bunch of issues in this workflow, and I am mapping it because what can happen is really like we have like the default workflow is showing some errors. So is it something related to this workflow? Is it something that is triggering inside Salesforce? And then when I have it all mapped, it's easy to identify where the error is being triggered and to fix the workflow. Otherwise, you're gonna have to like, okay, I'm gonna have to understand what is happening inside the flow, what is happening inside Salesforce, and so on. And it's gonna be like, in my point of view, a waste of time. But
So it does take overhead to set all this up and probably a little bit to maintain it, but it makes debugging much, much, much faster, it sounds like, with complex systems.
yeah, debugging, and also if someone is joining your team and the other person will be responsible for this flow, how are you going to explain what happens, what needs to be done, what properties are being updated? I think having this is much easier. Let's say you are joining my team, Nathan, and you'll be responsible for this flow. So then I can just like jump in here and I'll say, when we have someone with lead scoring coming from this source, from tier B, then we have lifecycle stage updated as lead, and lead status is marketing nurture, and this happened, and so on. So it's easier for you to understand, and it's easier for me to explain. You're gonna ramp up really faster as well, I think. So yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And here's another example of what I mentioned before. Like in this specific flow, we have it's not that big. We can have bigger ones, but I mean there's a bunch of options of paths that can be taken depending on the path here that the lead came from. So we have, for example, this A here that it's one end path, and then we have this one here as well. So it's kind of all connected. You can use like numbers, letters, or emojis, or different colors. Yeah, you choose the better option.
Yeah, I saw you had a party emoji on the other one. That looked pretty fun.
Yeah,
I guess that was for the end of the workflow, but yeah.
yeah. If it's like close at one, then yeah, celebration. Okay, so now maybe we can jump into build this one. I'm not sure if you're gonna have time to build it like the entire flow, but I can show how to build the second option here, similar to this one, but not as complicated.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do about 15 minutes, if that's, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this one here, we're gonna go through RB2B, Clay, and the CRM. And I really start in a very like, I don't know, I don't like to use templates. So I start from scratch. But that's just like my way of building things. Even in Clay, like when I have to build something, I don't like using templates. I prefer to build from scratch because I think it makes my mind think as well in the possibilities, and it's easier for me to understand. So here we have our B2B. And the idea is to really, let me see if I can copy. Yeah. The idea is to have like one space for our B2B, another one for Clay, another one for Clay, and we can change colors as well. I think it's always better to change.
I'm learning that color coding is a good thing.
Yeah.
As long as it is logically based.
Yeah, especially when it's a big flow, like so you don't get lost. And then we have the CRM. I'm not gonna add Slack here just because of timing, but you could add another layer for Slack. So let's say the CRM is HubSpot. Let's add orange because HubSpot is orange. That's another thing that I like to do. I think maybe I don't actually think like, okay, I'm gonna add orange because HubSpot is orange, but it helps me to understand, to picture, especially when I have HubSpot in Salesforce. Salesforce is blue, HubSpot is orange, so then I use the colors to help me understand as well.
Nice.
It's silly, but anyways, that's it. So we start here. Let me just copy. Release this part of the, release this one. So, okay, we have our B2B here. So what you can actually do with our B2B, you can, the starting point here could actually be, let's use an example that someone came from, I don't know, a LinkedIn organic post. And then I'm gonna delete this one. We can add here, this person visited your website, the webinar landing page. And then we have our B2B collecting information, which are usually like name, company, email. I think we have LinkedIn, I'm not sure, but then we have like our B2B information, and you can have our B2B connected to Slack. Whoever you are able to set some filters inside our B2B to filter whoever you want to notify in Slack, or don't. So if you want to send everyone that visits your website to Slack, you can have a channel and then all the information is going to flow there. That's not what I want here. Whoever visited our website, the hot pages, let's say the webinar that is happening next week is a hot page for me in this case. So I'm gonna have it being taken to Clay. So connecting our B2B to Clay. And then we're gonna have Clay do the lead verification. And then we can have the decision point here of, is it an ICP?
How would you make these? How would you, if you didn't have somewhere to copy from, how would you make these shapes in Miro?
I'll get one here. So you can just come here in the same, like the symbols here. You have one square, not square, but anyways. And you can just like change the color. You just click like on top of the shape here and you can change the color. I mean, here I have the ones that I use the most. If you are not able to like find the color here, you can always come to, I think it's this one here, and you can copy the color as well. But I mean, once you have one, I just copy and paste. I think it's easier. It saves time. And you just change
Makes sense.
you just change the copy. So if it's an ICP, we can run email validation in Clay. One thing that I actually changed in my process was when I was starting to build mapping flowcharts and processes, I was always doing this. So I have the process in my mind and I was just adding the I don't know how to call, but like the actions here or the decision points, and I was not connecting them. And then once I finished it all, I was like, okay, I didn't connect anything. So I was going back and connecting and seeing and like reviewing the process to make sure I added everything, or if there are like other options that could be taken that I could add in the process. That's one option. What I like to do now is really like already connect everything and add the options here. So let's say if it's an ICP, we add yes. If it's not, we add no, and then we go through the entire process. It's an option. It depends on how you prefer to run it. But right now, I like to start very organized so I don't have to go back it all again and add the arrows, add the options. So yeah. And let's say if it's not an ICP here, we already identify it. That's not an ICP. what I could do, let me just add this here. I could do lookup in CRM. As this is happening in Clay, I'm not going to push to the CRM yet. And then, does the contact or lead exist? Lead or contact exist?
I think you have your cap lock on.
Yeah. Exists in CRM. If the leader contact exists in CRM, and remembering we are talking about a lead that is not interesting for us, if it does exist, then I'm going to push it to HubSpot because it's there already. So I'm going to, let's say I'm going to add it here. I'm going to add it here, the arrow. I'm going to say, yes, it does exist. What is the action that I'm taking in HubSpot? Setting lead status, or I mean, I keep, because we have it's different in HubSpot and Salesforce. In Salesforce, you have the lead object, the contact object, so it's different. In HubSpot, it's all contact. So let me just change here. If you're using Marketing Hub, setting contact as disqualified, because this is happening inside HubSpot. Clay could be pushing. I could add another layer here to, like, it's not an ICP. It does exist in our CRM. I could add another layer here, run a lookup to find the contact ID, and then everything that is happening in Clay to then set the contact as disqualified in HubSpot. It's really up to you on how much detail you want to add in the process, because it can get very big. Yeah.
Nice. And so, like, let's say that you're in the process of mapping things and you don't know the details of, so this last action, I don't know if it's a lead or a contact, or you just aren't certain of something. Do you have a certain way of marking, I need to talk with my CMO, or I need to think into this more?
Yeah. You can actually, there are, I think, 3 ways that I like to do. You can add a comment, so I can tag you, like if you were here in my board, I can tag you and ask, Nathan, could you check if this is leader contact, or how's the process here? Are we using HubSpot, Salesforce? What is the CRM? So I can update better the information here, so I can add a comment. You also have the option to add like it's sort of like a post-it. So you can add here some information. You can also change the color. If it's something that needs to be checked, I can add it all as like red, for example. And you can also tag a comment here to tag someone. Or, as I like to do, I either use comments or I add another like the same as an action. It would be an action for me to check with my leader. So I add here, Natalia, check with Nathan. So I like to do this, and I usually use different colors from the ones that I'm mapping, because I know that this is something that I need to do. And then I can add a bunch of notes in the workflow, and then I run through all of them to ask the person that I need to reach out to. You can also add emojis. For example, if you can add a question mark here, like a big question mark. So you can spot in the workflow what are the points that you need to double check again.
Nice.
So yeah. But that's another thing that's pretty easy to happen, is you can get lost in the process mapping, because I mean, what I usually do is, like, I choose a path. So as we were talking here, I chose the path of, it's not an ICP. So I'm going to map everything from this process to the end. So, and then when I finish this path, I will go back here and start mapping the yes section of it. So, because if I start here and then I go back to yes, and then I remember, oh, I forgot that, you get lost, especially when it's a big workflow. So that's what I like to do. So I choose a path and I go to the end. Then I go back to the yes option and I map to the end. And even if I remember, oh, okay, this could probably be an option in the other path. If it's not an ICP, I could maybe, if it's not an ICP, but it's worth reaching out later, then I can add another decision point. But then I usually make a note. I finish the yes, and then I go back to the note that I had previously finished before. So yeah, it's easy to get lost.
Depth first. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I mean, what else is missing here? Usually connecting the tools, that's how I do. So you have to think like what is happening inside that tool. Even if it's like, as I mentioned here, you're gonna run a lookup in Clay to push information from HubSpot to Clay. But I mean, you're getting the information from HubSpot, but the action is happening in Clay. So I usually add, I have this like thinking that if the action is happening in Clay, then I'm gonna keep all in the Clay's action. When it actually happens in the CRM, that's the point that I'm going to go to the CRM spot or the section and add it.
So in your case, you said look up in CRM. You're interacting with the CRM in some way, but you're not pushing data to the CRM, so that lookup in CRM stays in the Clay section, and then
yeah.
Nice.
That's another example that we have here is for this one here. So we have a bunch of things happening in HubSpot. In this case, because what usually happens in a flow like this is you have, whenever one contact is created in HubSpot, it gets automatically created in Salesforce as well. So in this case, if we have this process happening, I would have, whenever a new leader contact was created here in HubSpot, I would push to be created here in Salesforce as well. And then I have things happening in HubSpot, and I would have things happening in Salesforce as well, and I would need to map both of them and understand when they connect. But in this case here, we had all the processes like happening in HubSpot, and I would push to Salesforce only if it's an opportunity being created. So that's why we have the process being like the connection points here. If we have an opportunity, if it's a hand raiser, if it's very like valuable, then we're gonna push this to Salesforce because the sales team will have visibility about it. But yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Let me see.
I think that's a good, just because we're running out of time, I think that's a good stopping point. I think this is going to be really, really, really valuable for people because I've looked for content like this and have not been able to find it. Yeah, I'm really excited to share this with the community, and thank you so much, Natalia. Maybe we'll do a round two if you're open to it at some point where we can keep going.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Let's build a huge workflow, very complex one.
Watch this 5-hour video at 2x. It'll still be.
It's nice. It's fun for me, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.